Join the team.
What happened here? All right, so the shepherd player, Bear, this is getting intense. The shepherd player, hey, this is the McGuire Review, and today we're going to be taking a look at a new game here to the market, and this is completely new. We're going to be seeing a Kickstarter here coming up on this very soon, and it is called Hunt the Ravager. That's designed by Clinton Morris and Inethral Games. So let's talk about this one a little bit here. Right off the bat, first, I like that it comes in this nice small form factor. Now again, this isn't hit Kickstarter yet. It is going to be coming pretty soon, and these are prototype materials. So this isn't what you're going to find for productionalized materials, although I will say I was impressed with this prototype copy. It does feel very close to production quality. Let's look at some stats on this one. 2 players, 60 minute, and 14 plus. Now, this is a 2-player game. It is totally designed to be a head-to-head game. And I think it's done really well. And the premise of this game is really going to be one of those sort of hide-and-seek type mechanics, where one player is playing the Ravager and one player is playing the 3 shepherds that we have here on the board. So let's go ahead and do an overview of some of the components that you're going to find in the game as it is right now. And then what we can do is kind of get into some of the gameplay and what that looks like and what either side looks like. Because one thing that I really like about this particular title is that as a player, you do get to experience within one game both sides of the house. So you do get to be the Ravager for half the game, and then you get to be the Shepherds for half of the game. And then at the end, the win condition will be whichever player as the Ravager successfully got the most victory points. You're going to find these cards in the game included, and these are all the cards that are included, and they do form the play mat. So one of the things that's nice is every time you play the game, this just isn't a set layout. Every time you play this game, you're going to be shuffling up all these land cards, and then you're going to be putting them out in a 5x7 grid. So you're going to have 35 cards at all times out in front of you, which means every time you play, you're going to have that variability of a different landscape that you're going to be going through. You're also going to have these little tokens here, and really the only purposes that these tokens serve, the A through E and the 1 through 7, is to give you that grid as you're playing the game. It's also to track here the days in the week. So when you play this game, you do have 7 days over the course of 3 weeks, and you will go through those weeks. Those weeks are like rounds, and you only have 3 rounds to be able to get your silo, we'll talk about that here in a second, to the secret lair of the Ravager. And if you're not able to do that, the silo can get destroyed. Shepherd player is essentially stopping you from being able to get victory points. And then every time you go through a turn, those are considered days. So you'll go through 7 turns within 1 week, and by the end of that first week, if you're not able to kind of get through each one of those days within a week, let's say that the Shepherd player is able to stop the Ravager from delivering their silo, or the Ravager isn't able to move for one reason or another, we'll talk about that, then that week will end and that silo will be destroyed, and then they'll have to start on one of the other ones. And you do have 3 silos that are included in the game. There's also this cool little board here, which will be given to the Ravager player, whichever player is playing that player, and that will just kind of hide what's behind there, which is your little movement tracker. We'll talk about that, as well as your fuel cards for the Ravager, and these little track tokens here that have kind of a green, sort of looks like trees or thorns on one side, and then on the other side it's got some little tracker marks. And those are going to be set on the board as the Shepherd is hunting for the Ravager, because the Ravager will not have a token actually placed on the board to say, hey, I'm right here. The Ravager is going to be secretly tracking their movement on this little sheet here, which stays behind your board so the other player doesn't know that. And you're going to select a layer location, and that's the secret spot on the board that you're going to be trying to take these silos and delivering them to. And then every time it's your turn within a day or a week, you're going to be secretly writing down on the sheet where you're moving with your Ravager. And as you move, you will be destroying various land items. So it will be clear to the other player that you're either on that item or you're near that item. So it is a really nice, balanced feel of hide and seek, because it isn't like the Ravager is completely hidden from the player. There are things that are happening over the course of the game as the Ravager is moving, as well as actions that the Shepherds take, and we'll talk about that, which will make it somewhat clear where the Ravager may be on the board. And I find it a really good balance that the Shepherd player always feels like they're right on the tail of the Ravager turn to turn. And that adds a very interesting mechanic to this game, and it adds a lot of excitement as you're playing the game, and the Ravager player is trying to get back to their lair and deliver one of these 3 silos. All 3 of them if they can, for the max amount of points. So that's one thing that I love about this game, and I think those mechanics are balanced very well. It isn't just your basic, hey, it's my turn, I'll write my location down on this card, and then guess where I am. There's a lot more depth and strategy to this game. So the last thing that we're going to see outside of the rulebook, we'll take a look at that here in a second, are these little cards which are called the fuel cards. And these can be used for movement. So as the Ravager moves around the board, they can either harvest one of these land cards. Now, not all of the land cards are cards that can be harvested. These little lakes here are areas that the Ravagers cannot go. And they're not going to be able to harvest an area that's already what they call the perma-wasteland here, an area that's already a wasteland, or an area that they've already kind of harvested. So as they move around the board, they're going to need to be on that card or adjacent to a card that they're able to harvest, and that allows that Ravager to move. Let's say they get in a situation where they don't have that ability. They can use one of these 5 fuel cards to be able to move as well. But again, at the end of the game, the more fuel cards you have, they're worth victory points. So if you can strategically think about how to move around the board from where you start to getting to your lair and delivering your silos every single week, and keeping as many of these fuel cards as possible, you'll be able to get a lot more victory points at the end of the game. So that's one thing to kind of keep in mind, and I like that balance as well, that it's something that's going to give you points if you're able to keep, but it's a vital aspect of needing to be able to get from point A to point B. So that's a nice mechanic, and I'm glad that they included these fuel cards, and it wasn't just moving around the board. You have the option to use these fuel cards as well. Now, I will call out while we're looking at these cards, I absolutely love the artwork in this game. It has a little bit of a darker feel. I wouldn't say the colors are overly bright and poppy. It does have a little bit more of a muted kind of darker feel, but I do like that. I think it fits with the theme of this game, and I like the artwork. It's almost like a real, I wouldn't say a watercolor, more of a pastel type artwork. And Bear likes it as well. Bear, you like the artwork? He likes the artwork. He told me so. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to take a look at this book. And Bear, go ahead and load the video. And what we're going to do here is take a look at some of these cards a little bit up close and some of the tokens that we have on the table. So you can go ahead and take a look at that as we kind of talk about this book here. So the rule book is a very, very simple rule book. You'll see here it's very short. I'm not sure if this is the size and or the layout that we're going to have once they go through the Kickstarter. It may be, it may not be. I found it to work perfectly fine as in its prototype state. And they do a nice job kind of showing you how to set up the board, how to go through what the various phases of the game look like. And I'll read those here to you. Every day, okay, so remember there are 3 weeks in the game, and each week has 7 days, and each day is essentially a turn. Within each day, the Ravager is going to move. The Shepherds right here are going to move. And then the Shepherds are going to act. They're going to have quite a few actions that are going to be available to them. I'll show you those here in a second. And then the Ravager is going to either declare, yes, I've made it back to my lair, or no, I have not. And if they have not, they're going to move this day tracker down 1. As long as it hasn't hit 7. If it's hit 7, you're kind of out of time during that week and you lose that silo. But you're going to move that day tracker down 1 and you're going to start a new day. So let's talk about what the actions would be for our Shepherd here player. So there's 7 different things that the Shepherd can do. It can track the Ravager, which means if you see a Shepherd here, the Shepherds are generally going to be in these junctions here, right in the kind of center, the cross area of 4 cards. And what that essentially means is the Shepherd is sort of watching this this sector of area of the land. And one of the actions is I can track the Ravager. Shepherd would choose one of those cards and say, you know what, Ravager, I think it can't be the lake because Ravagers they don't go by water, so it's not going to be the lake. You know what, I think you're in the mountains. Have you been in the mountains, or are you in the mountains? The Ravager can say, you know what, I have been in the mountains during this week. I'm not there now, but I have been in the mountains during this week, and even if I am there, the Shepherd doesn't necessarily know that. The Ravager player is going to need to take one of these little track tokens and flip it to the red side, so it has the little feet on it, and they're going to need to set that right there on that card. And now that's an indicator to the Shepherd player, okay, they've been there. Now you'll find over the course of game, as the Shepherd players move around the board and take actions, you're going to start sort of put these track tokens out on the board, and it's going to start to become clear kind of how the Ravager is moving around. And that's another fun mechanic from the Ravager player. You're probably not going to want to just beeline straight to your lair. And we'll describe what that means here when we kind of show what gameplay is going to look like. But you're going to select a secret location on the card. And let's just say this card right here was my lair, these mountains that are up here. You're going to want to not just make a beeline to that lair, because then the player is going to see, oh, they're just moving sort of in a straight kind of line towards that area. What's going on here? So that's going to give an indication to that Shepherd player. So what you're going to want to do sometimes is even backtrack or circle around and move around the board to sort of make those tracks look like they're kind of just all over the place, and it isn't really clear where you're trying to go and head. And that always makes it fun because you're kind of tricking the other player, but at the same time you're kind of losing time and losing movement by doing that. Next thing you can do is ask the Maticians if they've seen the Ravager. So let's talk a little bit about the backstory here on this game. These Maticians are harvesting, you could say, the magic from the rich soil of this land, and the Ravagers have come in and kind of slip through their barriers to be able to steal all of the essence and the magic that are stored up in these silos here. And the Shepherds are another race on this, let's say, planet, and they have a pact with the Maticians for one reason or the other, so they are coming out to sort of help the Maticians fight off the Ravagers, and that's why the Shepherds are here. That's why the Ravagers are doing what they're doing. They're trying to secretly sneak around, steal the magic out of these silos, and then deliver it to their secret lair. So on the board, there's going to be certain cards that are called city cards, and here's an example of one right here. Just kind of looks like a little, it looks like a city, and it's got some like little magic orbs in it, and some trees there along the bottom. And if you get to the point where you're on a area that has a city, when you're a Shepherd, you can ask the Maticians, have you seen any Ravagers around? And that's a very powerful move because it essentially will allow you to ask the Ravager player if they've been basically anywhere around the city. So that would be the 6 cards, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It would be the 8 cards all the way around the city, including the city. And if they have, the Ravager player would need to put a track token by looking at their sheet on every location that was around that city where they had been during that week. So that's a very powerful move that the Shepherd can do to be able to really cover a large basis of where the Ravagers should be. And you do have city cards. You have 1, 2, 3, 4. There are 4 city cards on the board. And again, that's going to be however they get put out. Now, with my random, draw, I do have some city cards that are pretty close to one another. That would be a little bit better for me as a player, as a Shepherd player, if they were spread out a little bit more. But again, it's all to the draw of how you put the cards down on the board. That's going to change game to game. Now, the next thing you can do is consult the Oracle. So a lot of the cards on this board, they do various things. Specifically this one here, which is an Oracle card. We've got a couple of them right up front here as well. If you were to get to this card, one of the things that you can do is consult the Oracle, and you can ask if the Ravager has been at a specific location on the board. It's a little bit harder to find a Ravager in a wasteland. So when we talked about, asking the city, and we talked about, getting to a junction and picking one of the cards, in those situations, you can't select wastelands. But when you go to an Oracle, you can say, is a Ravager hiding in A1, which is a wasteland. And if it is, you're going to have to put a tracker token down there. So those wastelands really help the Ravagers hide a lot better than any of the other cards, and that's the purpose of consulting and using the Oracle. We can travel further. So every time it's the Shepherd's turn, they can travel up to 2 movement, and 2 would be like 2 junctions. So they could go like 1, and they could go like 2. They can't do the diagonal like this. The Ravager can travel diagonally, but the Shepherds cannot. So they could go 1, 2 junctions. They could go 1, 2 junctions. They can travel 2 junctions. One of the actions is they can travel up to another one. So let's say you really want to get further across the map, and this turn you don't really want to hunt. You don't really want to see if there's one around you. You just want to kind of get to a different area of the map. Maybe there's a city over there, and on your next turn you really want to open up a lot of that area by asking the Morticians if they've seen a Ravager. You can take an action to move 1 more step. You can also hunt the Ravager. So what hunting means is, let's say that I have my Shepherd right here, and I want to move into one of these areas because I want to I think the Ravager is here. He's sitting right here right now, and he has one of those silos, and if I can get to an area where the Ravager is, I can kill the Ravager and get the silo back. And hunting would be, you would take it off the junction, and you would actually move your Shepherd into one of these particular areas to be able to directly hunt that Ravager. And then the next action you can take, or one of them you can take, is called continue hunting. So let's say your turn ended with this Ravager's turn, and you think that this is the Ravager's lair. Well, one of the tactics you can use as a Shepherd is just to continue to hunt on this area. And the reason would be, you think you've identified their lair, and you want to make sure they can't deliver that silo. Now, that may not be the most advantageous thing to do on week 1 or week 2, but after you start moving through these weeks, if these tokens are, these tokens will be removed from the game based on various things that have happened. So if there's a token on a card that hasn't been, ravaged yet, the token will stay there. But once the card gets ravaged, the token will come off and go out of gameplay, and the card will then flip over. And that's for the Ravager to make its movement as it's moving around the board if there's any tokens that already have a little tracker on it. The beauty to this is any trackers that are on the board at the end of a week, they'll stay on. You'll flip them over to their green side. And that's going to show you where Ravagers have been over the course of gameplay. Also, the longer you play, the Shepherd player is going to start to determine where they think that secret lair is, which we're going to just use these mountains right here, where they think that secret lair is. Return from the hunt is the last thing that you can do as a Shepherd, which means you're just going to basically come out of an area and go back to a junction ready to move. Because once you've come into hunt an area, you can't then just start moving on your next turn. You do have to come out of the hunt, and then on your next day or next turn, you'll be able to start moving again if you want to move around the board. As you use these Shepherds, you will take them and you will turn them over to indicate that you've exhausted their action. Just to remember, because again, all 3 of these tokens do look identical, and they don't have any numeric or letters on them or anything. So to remember that you've used that Shepherd, because when it's the Shepherd's turn, they will get to activate all 3 of their Shepherds. You can just flip those over to indicate that it's been exhausted. And then for the next turn, you can go ahead and turn them back over and start your next day and your next turn. So that's something to understand as well. Like when it is the Shepherd's turn, they do get to activate all 3 of their Shepherds. So some Shepherds may go in and hunt. Some Shepherds may ask if they've seen Ravagers. Some Shepherds may go on the move. So it's interesting how you do have these 3 Shepherds, which does make it fairly difficult for the Ravager player to strategically move around the board, because you do have 3 of these Shepherds hunting you at all times. So now at this point, after the Shepherds have done their actions, it's going to be the Ravager declare phase of the turn. And now the Ravager is going to say, you know what? I made it to my secret lair, delivered that silo, or nope, I'm not on my secret lair card. And now we will go to, the next day, the next turn. Now at this point, what will happen is, let's say, it would be just really easy to go to the next turn, right? If you haven't made it to your secret lair. But let's say that you did make it to the secret lair. Well, at that point, you would do what's called starting a new week. So you go to your tracker here, and you would circle kind of the spot of as far as you sort of made it. whether you were destroyed or whether you actually successfully delivered the silo, and then you would go to week 2. You would reset your days, you would turn any tokens on the board over to their green side, you would discard any tokens that were already green for one reason or the other. You wouldn't gain back any fuel cards. Those are used over the course of your 3 weeks. So again, you want to hang on to those unless you absolutely need them. And your shepherds would choose 3 new junctions that they would put their tokens at to start. You would essentially kind of refresh the game. Now you would keep the same secret location, and you would keep the cards in the same exact way that they are on the board. So that translates over week to week. And then you would start a new week. Again, only having 3 of those weeks to work through. So let's say that we are moved through the 3 weeks, the game is over. After that point, the players are then going to switch sides. So now the Ravager player is going to become the shepherds, and the shepherds are going to become the Ravagers. So the hunter will become the hunted, which is a pretty cool concept, and I like that balance. So now at this point, you're going to play through the whole game again that way. Once the 3 weeks are over, it's going to be the end of the game. And then right on the back sheet of this, it's going to list out the point system for the end of the invasion, they call it. And basically the victory is going to go to the player that had the most victory points when they were the Ravager. And it lists out right here how the points are going to work. You're going to have 4 points for every silo. You're going to get 1 point for each one of the wastelands, and you're going to get 1 point for each one of your fuel cards that are still, left throughout the course of that game. Let's get in just a little bit of the gameplay. So let's say, I was to come here and say, our secret lair is right here. So you're not going to tell anybody that, and that's going to be B7. So B7 is the Ravager's secret lair. And on day 1, the Ravager does get to move for free. So day 2 through 7, that's going to cost them. They're either going to have to use fuel or harvest areas, but day 1 movement is for free, and they can move up to 2 times in each day. And there's 2 little boxes under each day to indicate that. So the layer's been written down. We're now in week 1, and we're now in day 1. Now, the Shepherd player is going to know where the Ravager starts because you're going to have to pick one of these 3 silos. And let's just say, I'm going to pick this one. We're going to set that silo right here. And now the Shepherd knows, that is where the Ravager is starting. So for my first movement, I'm just going to go ahead and let's see here, because I really want to sort of trick the player a little bit. I am going to, I'm going to trick this Shepherd player a little bit because I don't want to just go directly here and then have that Shepherd player find my secret lair, because if they determine that's the lair, that's bad for me, because I still got 2 more weeks to go through and 2 more silos. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just start taking out these cities. So I'm going to move here, and then for my second movement, I'm going to move here into this wasteland, which is kind of a hiding area for my character. So I would go here and I would write down, okay, so for day 1, I moved to B5 and I moved to A5. And those are my 2 movements. So I'd write B5 in here and A5 in here. So that's very clear. And now my movement would be over. And I'm secretly hidden right here, holding this silo. Now the Shepherd player is going to say, well, I know you started right here, so I wonder, I bet you that you may have moved to try to hide in one of these wasteland areas, but we're not really sure. And I'm on a city already, and I do get basically all of these cards. So you know what? I'm going to just go ahead and use an axe. So for this one here, I'm not going to move. I'm just going to go ahead and stay right there for this one and use an action. And that action is going to be asking the Metesians if they have seen anyone here, if they've seen any of the Ravagers moving through. And the Metesians are going to say, well, you know what? I did see them here, and I did see them over here in this city. So then and that would be the Ravager player kind of telling the Shepherd player that, obviously. Then what you would do is you put a little tracker token there, and you would put a little tracker token there. And you would have put a little tracker token there anyway, because that's where the Ravagers started at the beginning of the turn when they took the the silo. So you would have put one of those there already. Now it's clear to this shepherd, and the shepherd's actions are now over. They're going to turn that over. They've used their one action. They have 7. They have their movement, and they have 7 actions. Didn't decide to move, and they used one of their 7 actions. So now it's clear I'm kind of moving this way. Okay, well, what does that mean? Does it mean the Lair is over there? They're making a dash to it? Does it mean they're just trying to trick me? But this is going to give me an indication that this Ravager may be right here because they only had 2 movement. Now we're going to go to the next. We're going to go to the next shepherd, and I'm going to take this shepherd and go 1, 2 for my movement, and now I'm going to say for my action I'm going to go on a hunt, and I'm either going to hunt here or I'm going to hunt here. Interesting. You know what? I'm going to take this and I'm going to go into this oracle area and I'm going to hunt. So I'm not going to use the oracle. The oracle is an action. Maybe I use the oracle on the next turn, but I'm going to hunt. Which means if the Ravager is there, I've caught the Ravager, destroyed the silo. We're going to week number 2. Eat all on the first day. Well, you know what? The Ravager says, you know what? I haven't been there and I'm not there. Oh, I made the wrong mistake. I bet they were there, or maybe they could have been there. So I turn that over. Now it's the next shepherd's turn. But you know what? My shepherds can hunt in those wastelands. So now I have to make the decision of what to do with this shepherd. So I am going to just take this one and move 1 and 2. And now the Ravager player is getting pretty nervous because the Ravager player is hidden right here. And if the shepherd chooses to go in and hunt in that area, they will find the Ravager player and destroy for that silo. But you know what? This shepherd player says, you know what? I'm going to go in and I am going to ask where you've been this week. I'm not going to go in and hunt because I already have one that's locked into a card hunting here. So I'm just going to ask for one of these cards if you've been there. So I'm going to ask to say if you have been here. And what's going to happen is the Ravager player is going to say, nope, haven't been there. And now the shepherd player knows there's only one other location that would have been possible for that Ravager to be, and that's in this wasteland. So on day 2, they already know that the Ravager is actually located right here now if they're paying attention to the actual movement that the Ravager can take. But that is the last action for that player. We're now going to go to the declare phase, and the Ravager player is going to say, no, I have not made it to my secret base yet, my secret lair to deliver the silo. Okay, we're now going to go to day 2, and we're going to go now to day 2 on our little sheet. And it would now go ahead and refresh these tokens so we know that they're all going to be available again. And then we are now ready for the second turn for the Ravager. So let's just take that second turn because now movement isn't free. And now I'm here. Well, I can't just take up a wasteland for movement. It's already a wasteland. So what I might need to do then is, you know what? They're right hot on my trail. I'm going to try to get to my secret lair, but I can only move twice. Ooh, that's a problem. You can move into and through areas with shepherds as well. And you'll do that sometimes as a trick. I wanted to move this way. This one would be a valid move to and consume if I wanted to, to be able to do that movement because it's not anywhere a shepherd is hunting and it's not on one of their junctions. Now, you don't have to be on a card to consume it because that would tell the shepherd, oh, they're right there. Maybe you are, maybe you're not. You can consume cards that are the Ravager is sitting on or is adjacent to the Ravager. So you could consume a card that's adjacent to the Ravager, flip it over, and then move this way. Move another way. So it doesn't necessarily indicate that the Ravager is there. So, our Ravager is right here secretly. I'm going to go ahead and consume this card for a movement. So I'll flip that over to a wasteland, and now it is considered I can move. Let's see what I want to do. You know what? I am going to go ahead and move to this wasteland secretly, and then I would note that. So that's my one movement. I get one more movement if I want to take it, and I'm going to go ahead and consume. I can't consume any of these. I'm going to consume this oracle again. So I'm going to consume this oracle as well and put that right there. Okay, now my turn is over, and what is that? And again, my secret lair is right here. What does that tell the shepherd player? Well, the shepherd player now knows that I consumed this card and moved, which means I had to be adjacent or on this card. Interesting. So I could have moved this way, and I could have moved... that wouldn't have been... Ravager may move to an area that is being occupied by a shepherd. And that kind of gets into one of those areas where you might be there and you might want to use one of those actions as a shepherd to continue to hunt. So Ravager may move to an area that's occupied by a shepherd. Now again, as these cards are consumed for movement, they can be adjacent. So adjacent for the Ravager is kind of anywhere around, even counting diagonal. So there's lots of different places this Ravager can be based on what happened here. All right, so the shepherd player, Bear, this is getting intense. The shepherd player is going to actually now take... Oh, where could he be? He could be here. He could be here. He could be anywhere. Okay, this shepherd player is going to move this one here, and it's going to ask now... Because if we stayed here, we could use the city. No, I was going to ask. Okay, they're going to ask. Obviously, it's clear they use these to move, but it doesn't mean that they're actually moved through them. They could have been an adjacent card. So I'm going to pick this wasteland, and you know what? I can't do that. So a wasteland helps the Ravagers hide even more. So I can't just say, "Hey, have you been here? Are you here?" You can't do that on wastelands. So I've moved there. I'm going to move, and you can move back. You know what? I'm going to stay there, and for my action, I'm going to hunt, and I'm going to take a risk. I'm going to take a risk, and I'm going to hunt, and I'm going to go into this area to hunt. Now, at that point, if the Ravager was there, the shepherd player would be able to steal that silo, destroy it, and we'd go to the next week. Now, what we're going to do is flip that to show they've done that action again. The Ravager is right there. This shepherd now is going to... Let's see here. We're going to say... We're going to pick... Now, it's not going to be this, because they're definitely moving this way. So what I'm going to do is cycle down here. I'm going to go... this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to do 1, 2, 3. And I'm going to utilize that city to open up... Now, why would I do that? Why would I do that as a shepherd? There's no way they've moved that way. So let's go back here. I'm going to do 1, 2... And I'm going to use my third action for movement. And I'm going to do that because it definitely feels like the Ravager is moving this way, and I want to utilize that city maybe to open up an area, or I just want to be there ready to hunt on the next turn. And I did use the third action for movement, so I'm going to go ahead and use that. This now is going to come off the hunt and back. And that's really the only thing that I can do. It does cost you just an action to come off the hunt. So by doing that, I've now used that shepherd's action. Now we're to the declare phase, and the Ravager is going to say, declare, I am not on my secret base, I'm in on another location, and you have not found me here on this hunt. Ugh, okay, it is still hidden. So what does that tell me as a shepherd player? That more than likely, the Ravager is either here, here, potentially here, but probably here or here. All right, now I'm ready for this next day, and now we're going to move to the next day, day 3. Now you will find that if the Ravager player really isn't, extremely cunning, by that day 3, day 4 time period, you're going to be getting really close to hunting and finding the Ravager. And you're going to get to the point where you dive in and you do probably start to do like multiple hunt turns where you're hunting in a certain location because you are just sure where that Ravager is or where that Ravager is going. So we're going to go ahead and stop gameplay at this point. I think now it's probably clear and you've got a good perspective on how that hunt and that hide-and-seek game is going to play out. But you can just see how tactical and how strategic it is. Like every single day, it is intense. I mean, my heart is beating and I'm playing myself, which is odd. That's how this game works, and I love the fact that this game is that way. that every single day, every single turn, you're really, you know, it's like the hunters, the shepherds are like right on your back at all times, unless you really just start to dive out from the board and utilize that time. But you know, it's a balance, because if you want to just run from your secret lair, or let's say that we started over here and the secret lair was, you know, all the way on the other side of the board, to just kind of run from that towards your secret lair and take a long time to get across the board, you may burn through those days and lose your time to be able, you know, to successfully deliver that silo within the week. So that's the balance to this game. I do really like this game. I hope this game does well in Kickstarter. Again, it's going to be coming to Kickstarter soon. This is the Gen Con week. Let's gear up for that. I will be meeting with Clinton there at Gen Con to further discuss this game. Maybe we can get a little bit of an interview with him, if possible, that we can add into our Gen Con overview to see just a little bit more on this game from Gen Con 2017. So look forward to this in Kickstarter. Be watching. That's Hunt the Ravager. So hit that like, click the subscribe below to join the team, ring the bell. This has been the McGuire Review, and we'll see you next time. Get hunt!